I think if we ask anybody what's changed most in technology in the recent years, it has to be the use of multimedia. Now, sure, multimedia has been around for a long time, but I remember in what seems like my not-so-distant past when it used to be very cumbersome to work with audio and video, much less movies. Well, SharePoint has allowed us to work with multimedia, kind of, for the last several versions, but they've greatly enhanced it once again in SharePoint 2013. Multimedia is typically handled, or at least stored, in something called an asset library. An asset library is just like any other library. It has a title, it has columns, it has one or more views, it has a ribbon, it has an open menu, all of the things that we've been talking about thus far. What's different, though, is that when we actually upload a video, there are a couple of extra things we probably want to do with it that make it more useful as a video. I've already loaded a video into our library simply because uploading video can take a long time. You can go ahead and do this because this video, called Excel Large Worksheets, is found in your Working Files folder in the Chapter 5 subfolder. Upload it exactly like you do everything else. Now, once it's in here, what we want to do is take a look at its properties. There are, again, many ways that we can do this. Let's go ahead and use the Open menu and take a look at one thing before we go ahead and open it any further. I did want to draw your attention to the fact that all of these callouts that we've been seeing within library items include a link. This is a link that you can use to put into an email message or even onto another web page in order to access the content you've been talking about. Now, that's something that we do very commonly with video. If you've ever used YouTube video or had somebody send you a link, that's exactly what's happened. YouTube provides something called an embeddable link, and that's what this is for SharePoint. Of course, the person who receives the link does have to have permissions to get into the library, but assuming that they do, especially for internal type of content, this may be the easiest way to send the link to someone else. Of course, this callout gives us the opportunity to play, and you can also download it as a copy for yourself. However, the download is an option, so you may or may not see that depending on how the original author set it up. All right, let's go ahead and hit that ellipsis, and let's choose Edit Properties. And after just a couple of seconds, it's going to open up in a fairly large window with a preview of the video on the top of the screen. Now, right now, this video is very boring because we're not seeing a preview of it at all. We're just seeing a blank film strip. That's the first thing that we want to change. One of the new features in 2013 is the ability to change your thumbnail. And what's really nice is you have several options. Starting from the bottom, you can actually use a static picture from a web address. So if, for example, you had a picture inside of a picture library in SharePoint, you could simply copy the URL to that picture, come into this option, paste it in, and immediately have a wonderful thumbnail for your video. Another option is to use a picture from your computer. Same basic process, except you don't have to copy the URL. You would instead navigate to the folder in which the picture resides. The one that we want to practice with is the very first one, though, and that is the ability to actually capture a thumbnail from the video itself. This is really a nice option because, of course, it's relevant and you don't have to go out and make anything extra. When you select this option, it'll give you some instructions that tell you to use the camera button above after starting the video playback. So I'm going to scroll up just a touch so we can see our video. The playback button is on the bottom left-hand corner, and the camera that they're talking about is at the top center of the screen. Now, I'll have to warn you, this is not a very interesting video. It's just a very short clip to give us a video to work with. It just shows a couple of screenshots. So we can start it and wait until we find a frame or a spot that we like the look of. It should be something that's going to represent the overall video. I promise not to make you wait too much longer. I just want to get to a point that has something more interesting on screen. We'll go ahead and pause. And now, from the top of the screen, we'll simply click or tap on the camera button. If we scroll down, you may not have noticed before, but previously, the icon to the left here was just that blank film strip. Now we actually have the screen capture that we created. So using this new feature, you have 3 different options to create a very interesting thumbnail that represents your video. That'll make it more interesting and easier for people to identify within the library. There are a few other properties, though, that are also worth mentioning. One that could be really nice, depending on how you work, is called a video rendition. Now, this is something that you probably won't be working a lot with, but I just wanted to mention that it's possible for a company to have several different renditions of a video. For example, they could have one in high def and one for viewing on mobile devices. If you work in a multinational company, they may also have one in different languages. For example, one in English, one in Spanish, one in French, one in German. If those are available, all of the different renditions can be listed here. And that's what that's about. If you wanted to manage renditions, you would click on the link and work from there. We're not going to work with any renditions now, so we'll just look at a couple more of these properties. We can tell that this is a video content type. That's what lets it know what types of things it can do, like play. We can give it a name. By default, it's the same as the file name. But if that isn't very useful, you might want to give it a more friendly name. For example, working with large worksheets. Remember that this is a field or a column, so you want to give it a descriptive title because that can also help people understand what it is, as well as find it in search. Normally, I would also recommend that you give it a good description. What types of things are being shown in this video? The owner is the person who is currently creating it, although that can be changed. Here's where you get to designate if you want to show an embed link and a download link. You can choose to do either one or the other, or neither one at all. And lastly, especially if there are people in the video, it's helpful to identify them. Again, if somebody's looking for videos by Aaron, then having my name here would be useful. This is again going to use the list of SharePoint users. So if you can just start typing, you can then select it from the list. Remember what we said, this now has functionality, so it's tied to all kinds of different things, probably including some of the information that has to do with social networking with Aaron as well. Well, there you go. That's it. It's very interesting and a little bit different than the properties for other types of library items that we have. When we're finished, we can simply click or tap on Save. There, now I know it's still just a worksheet, but doesn't that look just a little bit more interesting and more engaging than an empty film strip frame? Also notice that instead of the original file name, the name that we typed in as the title is actually being displayed as well. Much easier to read and probably a little bit more useful and meaningful to those looking at the asset library. What you now know is that media handling is improved in SharePoint 2013. Better than it has ever been, and resolving some of the issues that we've had before. Properties can now be customized, including the ability to add a thumbnail image for various different kinds of sources. From the internet, from SharePoint, from other websites, from your computer, from your network, or even captured from the video itself. The things that you most likely will need to do as a user of SharePoint libraries can be done from the Items Open menu, its property sheet specifically, or other options that are available in the ribbon. This includes other types of things like working with the content and downloading it. Remember, though, that there are a lot of variables related to multimedia, audio, and video. So you may need to consult someone on your team or in IT for assistance or information on what's allowed, what may be supported on your system, or if you have any other questions related to the files, the formats, and the functioning of multimedia in SharePoint libraries.